Habitual language choice. An important aspect in bilingualism is to study habitual language choice. So the question that we would like to ask is the language switching, or do we alternate between different languages as a part of habit, or is there some sort of system beyond that habit? So we would argue that this habitual use or switching of from one language to the other is far from random, because this is all systemized. This whole concept of which language is appropriate for use in certain situations, what is best in this situation, all these things are actually dictated by socio-cultural norms. And our point is to sort of look at this habitual choice of languages used by individuals and try to interpret or try to form a pattern of these habits and understand how this habitual use of languages is dictated by wider socio-cultural norms. And then what do these norms depict? So when we are choosing what to speak to whom, and this seems to be almost at a subconscious level, we need to understand that these habits have actually developed from the norms of the society, from the operating conditions of those languages within a given context. For instance, if you choose to speak in English with your senior in a specific situation, then that doesn't mean that this switching off from Urdu or from a regional language to English is just a habit. It is because of a certain kind of a social norm which you are subconsciously following. So the question is, how can we describe these habitual choices? How can we possibly make sense of them and try to see and try to predict the form of bilingualism that is either changing, that is indicating language shift, or it is indicating language maintenance, and in which domains, for instance, certain languages are more dominant than the others. So we can do that by actually trying to understand habitual use of languages by bilinguals and by systematically identifying patterns of this use. So once we do that, this is very important because it allows us to define them theoretically. As we discussed before, that it is very important to define a construct theoretically if any sort of research is intended in that field. Because once we are clear about what we are saying or which phenomena are we talking about, that only will facilitate research. And clarifying this construct is very important because people in different contexts doing research, we need to come up carefully with one construct, or at least know what other person is talking about, what are the operational construct that we are dealing with when we are comparing one research in bilingualism with another research. So understanding habitual use of language, we move from individual to intragroup. That is, how is language habitually used within a group. So intragroup means within a group. And then from there we can move on to how language use or how habitual language use is used intergroup between two different speech communities. So this will allow us to identify different patterns of habit which actually reflects the dominance configuration, which actually reflects the language shift, language maintenance, and we can come up with other things related to how language is operating within a given socio-cultural context.